This is
We're live.
Faye. Perry is here with me today, and I'm very excited. And also, this is like literally one of the earliest live stream I've had. It is 10:30 a.m. my time, 35, and I
Oh, good
usually do
morning.
these morning time. I usually do this around like noon or after, but Perry, you nailed it because Tuesday is the only day that I have like an early morning meeting because I have a client in Singapore and we are here. Welcome to Feisworld live stream. I'm so glad Chris connected us. I'm very grateful.
Thank you, Chris, in the red chair. Right.
Yeah.
So,
Michelle. Yeah.
and Michelle as well. So, are you okay, Faye, in the morning, early morning? Is this okay for you? Or do I need to talk slowly?
I work just fine. I think I got used to it. Since I've had this client in Singapore since April, and it's been fantastic working with them. So speaking of which, like this multicultural interaction, whether it's with clients or trying out different foods, having different friends, and here I am with you. I love saying your last name. Actually, it's Perry Knoppert,
With a
and
K,
with a K, you
with a
actually
K, Knoppert, yes.
Knoppert, and who is Dr. Octopus, known in the octopus movement. And so today, if you're watching wherever you are, please say hi. I think I want to really take this opportunity, Perry, with you to talk about what it's like to be a creator and how to actually start a movement. Not just how to start, how to sustain and finish, or sustaining it. It's even better than finishing it. I think it's starting with you, but there's so many people who believe in what you're doing, which is about, I think, what you refer to as multi-potentialite. First of all, what does that mean?
Well, a multipotentialite is someone who has multiple interests or doing
Mm,
multiple things. It's the opposite of a linear specialist. You know, a
mm,
linear specialist is doing the same job for 30 years, and they're very good at it. Obviously, they're looking at the same Excel sheet for 30 years, so they're a single specialist, very good at
mhm,
one thing. And a multipotentialite is someone who is very good in multiple things, multiple
mhm,
passions, multiple ideas, multiple focus.
mhm.
That's a multipotentialite.
So I definitely claim to be one for sure. So are you. And
Yeah.
tell us about your different potentials and different interests, perhaps you've had recently, or maybe growing up or earlier in life.
Well, I always thought I was a bit crazy because I always had so many more ideas than others, and I was always pursuing so many more goals in life than my friends
Mm,
and family. You know, they would
mm,
always stick to one thing and go for it. And I was always doing multiple things, having multiple ideas, and I always thought I was a bit crazy because so many people were not doing that, and I couldn't help myself. You know, I have these
mm,
little notebooks, and I'm writing down all these ideas, and it I can't stop thinking about new solutions, create solutions for problems, create new companies.
mhm,
It
mm,
doesn't stop. It doesn't stop. It never stops, and it it didn't start somewhere. Um, it has always been there. You know, I've
mm.
always been creative. I've always been thinking about many things at the same time, and I can't help it, basically.
And then that's interesting. Can we break that down? Because what a lot of people say that, oh, could it be ADD, ADHD? People used to say that about me and to say, oh, for your age, that was probably not even, that's like pre-diagnosis.
Mhm.
Uh, so, like, how do you think about it with a positive lens as opposed to maybe, my parents or my grandparents, especially, and friends would be like, you need to have focus. You don't know who you are, what you want. You really should know that by now. Like, what do you say to those people on those kind of feedback or suggestions?
Oh my God, did I hear that a lot? Perry, you need to focus, and they have the best intentions in the
Mhm,
world to say that to you. Perry, stick to one idea. You need to focus. You're referring to neurodiversity. I started interviewing people with multipotentiality all over the world because I was so curious how others were doing the same thing as I was doing.
mhm,
And so, how does a multipotentialite operates in South Africa or Bangladesh or Egypt or whatever? So I started interviewing these people, and I discovered quickly, well, wasn't that quickly. I think after 70 interviews, I was started thinking, God, they all have neurodiversity. That's
Mhm,
interesting. So if you ask me, multipotentiality is an outcome of neurodiversity. And
mhm,
and if I can make that even more clearly, I
mhm,
always use the words linear and nonlinear thinking.
mhm,
So when you go to school, there is a linear system in how to learn something. If you stick to your homework and you do your best and you get good grades, you get your diploma, you get your job, and you're
mhm,
fine, right? But when you're wired differently, when your brain isn't stopping,
mhm,
you cannot stick in that linear direction wherever you're going. It's
mhm.
impossible. Faye, it's impossible for you to stick to one thing. My God, I've seen your YouTube channel. That's a great example. Focus,
Okay.
Faye. You're not sticking to one thing, you're doing everything. But you can't help yourself. You
Mm,
need to do that. So, and looking at neurodiversity is also a very linear way, in
mhm.
my opinion, because as soon as something becomes complicated, we want to simplify things.
Yeah.
So, what do we do when there is a complicated brain? We simplify it by giving it a label: ADHD, dyspraxia, dyslexia, ADHD, whatever. But it's the neurodiversity, it's diversity. You cannot simplify diversity, in my opinion. So you
Mhm,
have all these beautiful people that have brains that are wired slightly different than normal, and these
mhm,
people do many things. They're very creative, they can do awesome things. But the problem in this linear world is that we don't always recognize these people. Because when a huge company wants to hire a marketing director, you know, they want a linear expert. They want a linear specialist who studied marketing, who had the
mhm,
marketing job for 25 years, and then they will hire that person. But
mhm,
that's a single linear specialist. Very cool, but I think in the world we need to combine linear specialism and nonlinear thinking to really build up beautiful solutions. When you look at the world and you look at the people who really made a difference, 9 out of 10 times, those are nonlinear thinkers.
mhm,
They are really able to create innovation. They really think outside of the box. They're not an expert. An expert cannot innovate. You build
mhm,
your expertise based on knowledge of the past. So how can you create innovation if what you think is based on your knowledge of the past?
mhm,
And you need to be able to think outside of these boxes and go to new areas in order to create something really cool. And those are the people who can make a difference in the world, save humanity, find solutions for climate change and whatnot. And that's what the octopus movement is doing. It's combining all these amazing people together and make a difference.
Yeah, and
That's a long answer for a simple question. Sorry.
no, not at all. I think there's a lot to break down. I think we're constantly dancing with the idea of specializing, often for the sake of advancement, whether it's in a career, whether in something that's monetary. People often will say that they special, in order to do these things so that they and their families can live a good life, stable life. And I agree. When I look at my through my own entrepreneurial journey, if I started in 2016. Right then and there, I said, you know what, I'm starting today. I need an accountant. I need somebody to build a website. I need somebody to tell me a call to action, to build my email list. That I need all the experts to be in my life. Number one, I didn't have the money. Most people wouldn't have that type of money when they're starting out. Also, nobody really knows, like, oh, here's my message. Here's who I'm going to be in 5, 10 years time. So they end up learning everything all at once. I mean, frankly, if any of you watching this is a YouTuber or content creator, you probably know this, that you are absolutely multi-potential. Like, even if you create just one kind of video, because in order to
You
be
need to
on
do
YouTube,
everything, right?
you
And
need
it's
titling,
you need,
research, description,
yeah.
design, website. It's all going to eventually happen. So I think pushing that idea away to say you have to like specialize in one thing is it's a detriment to who you are as a human being. But is there a way? I'm going to challenge you, this Parrot. Is there such a thing as doing too much, as having not enough focus? Um, what is like
Well,
that
it
like for you?
depends. It
Mm-hmm.
depends on where you are. If you're doing so many multiple things and you're not finishing anything, that's the big thing, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Starting up new adventures and never complete them, never
Mm-hmm.
finish them, is that an issue? I don't think so, because eventually everything comes together, and that's your journey in life as a nonlinear specialist. And then
Mm-hmm.
when you start your podcast series, when you go to YouTube, when you create your new company or whatever, all of a sudden everything comes together, and it's the
Mm-hmm.
education everybody is dreaming of, right? You
Yeah.
can't learn that at school. So by not completing your new ideas, it's not per definition something bad.
Mm-hmm.
The only problem is when some people get very nervous, they don't know what to do, and they have
Mm-hmm.
people around them that have expectations. We expect them to be whoever, successful or have enough money or be a doctor or a lawyer or whatever. um,
Mm-hmm.
that's fine, but you need to explore for yourself, where are you going, and you feel and when you're a nonlinear thinker, that when you hit the sweet spot, when you're doing exactly that thing that you need to do, then everything comes together, and
Mm-hmm.
and focus will change. That's the
Yeah.
funny part. Then you're all of a sudden super focused. You can't tell me otherwise, Faye, that you're not super focused. You are
Mm-hmm.
super focused, but before that, you were all over the place, maybe,
Mm.
and now it's just straight on target. You know exactly what you're doing, and it's
Yeah. Yeah.
multiple focus, like Elon Musk was saying. How do you do multiple focus? And he says it's single focus, but the single focus every time in a different area. Then it's SpaceX, then it's Tesla, then it's Twitter, whatever. Not at the same time, and
Mm.
everybody can do that, but
Yeah.
you need practice.
Yeah, it's a really interesting topic I've been thinking about. I feel like the conversation is very timely, which is the idea of platform agnostic creators. A lot of there are a lot of creators on my platform connecting with me, and the number one challenge still for people not doing much or anything, but feel like they should do more, but they don't have that activation energy, is they spend all that energy deciding on which platform, whether it's am I a YouTuber, a blogger, or a
Yeah,
podcaster? Should I be
yeah.
on Instagram or Facebook or somewhere else? Like, start with you, start creating. I agree with you. Like, so many people need to be reminded that you're right. Like, things change very rapidly. That the idea of having a point of reference to yourself in your 30s, 40s, and 50s is magical. My producer Herman brought it up. I look at my own documentary in 2018, now on Amazon Prime. It makes me giggle, makes me very uncomfortable. It's like, why was I so nervous that I'm no longer feeling that way at all? Well, that's progression. So I think that is a really, really interesting thing to start doing something. And now you are creating a platform and a community for people to feel more at home, to feel more connected, which is frankly something I didn't really have at the very, very beginning. And that was so hard, be a multicultural, multilingual podcaster in 2014, female. That was like exciting and like nerve wracking at the same time. But you created this community where people come together and be like, huh, I'm weird and it's good to, but not so weird anymore. And it's good to be weird. So tell us about what are some of the realizations that you've learned as a community leader, as an innovator within the octopus movement. What have you learned from other people?
Well, I wanted to first say, um, I should be sponsored by Nike, because my mantra is just do it. And to go back, deciding what platform, what do I do, just do it, and follow your nonlinear uh, gut feeling to get wherever you want to go. But we learn
Mhm,
at school that you start here and you go there, and it's a straight line. But that's not the case anymore. Just do it, and it will come together. So now
mhm,
back to your question. Um, the community. What was your question again, Faye? Sorry, I wanted to say just
Yeah,
do
what
it
are
because
some of the absolutely, what are some of the learnings and reflections or even observations you've seen from people in your group? And for people, other people who are watching, you have something like, you know what, like 1800, you build this community to a very, you know, this very sizable community in very small amount of time, right? Like what
yeah.
have you observed among other people in your community? Or what are the expected versus surprises? I don't know.
Um, it started because I wasn't thinking about it. I wasn't designing at my desk, I'm going to start a global movement. I was talking to a group of multipotentialites and I said to them, the word multipotentialite doesn't work for me. It's too boxed. It's too linear. It's the label multipotentialite, but that's
Mhm,
an outcome. I want to talk about indeed the weird people. For
mhm,
me, the cool kids are not the cool kids. For me, the cool kids are the weirdos. If you look
mhm,
back at your high school and you look at the picture, then
mhm,
the kids that were the cool kids are now having the boring life, and then the
mhm,
weirdos are now doing the most exciting things. So
mhm,
I was asking a group of multipotential. I said, what's the symbol of a curious weirdo, a curious mind? What is
mhm.
that? And then Christine in London said, I always use the octopus emoji just for the fun of it. And Haley in South Africa said, have you seen My Octopus Teacher? Which is a documentary about a filmmaker who has a friendship with an octopus. I watched that documentary the same evening, and then I thought, I'm going to set up the octopus movement because after talking to so many multipotentialites and people with neurodiversity, we need to create some awareness of the awesomeness of people that are atypical thinkers,
Mhm,
because that would be awesome. Because the world is so linear, you need to behave like that. You need to do
mhm,
exactly like you're being told, and we're missing out on a great opportunity. So I started with the octopus, and I'm very grateful for the octopus because it resonated so much with a lot of people. So they
What's the
signed
name?
up.
What's
Sorry,
the name of the documentary again?
My Octopus Teacher.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Please
So
continue. Yeah.
cool, so cool. and
Mhm,
and for people it resonated immediately that they saw an octopus and they thought, I feel a little bit like an octopus. 3 hearts, very sensitive, 9 brains, very fast thinking, and 8 arms doing lots of things at the same time.
mhm,
And also I can adjust my shape, adjust my color. You cannot put me in a box because I will escape immediately.
mhm,
So that really helped me, that symbol of what I was talking about. So a lot of people signed up. We created the manifesto. Thank God I had help because I wrote a manifesto. I think it was 8 pages of my
mhm,
thoughts, what should be in the
mhm,
near future, how we should change. And um, someone in Australia, a copywriter, helped me, Aaron Thompson, such a cool dude. And he rewrote the manifesto for me, put it on the website. People could read the manifesto, and we're reading it and coming back like, I feel like an octopus. I'm an octopus as well. And
mhm,
since then, it moved very quickly. And I always say, I'm not creating a community. I hate the word community. I'm creating a movement. We
mhm,
want to change something. We want to
mhm,
change something for the better in the world. And within that change, people will find each other. There are no rules. You don't have to be a nonlinear thinker to be at the
mhm,
octopus movement. You can be linear, you can be nonlinear, whatever. As long as it resonates to you, you can be there. And by
mhm,
connecting all these beautiful minds together, I always call it the mycelium network of beautiful people, because these amazing connections are helping each other, just like the mycelium underground, where trees and mushrooms are communicating with each other and sharing
mhm,
nutrition with each other. That's
mhm,
what we do in the octopus movement as well. So someone sends me a message in India saying, I'm working on this, I need some help. And then someone in Paris responds. It's just amazing. And it's all based on, we're not following the linear structures. It's non-linear. We're trusting our gut feeling and we just do what we need to do.
So that's fascinating that you're able to attract a lot of people who may or may not heard of you before. Do you know if at the beginning you're able to attract people to the movement because they're connected to you? I mean, you are an established photographer, you travel around the world, so your name is known. Or did you discover that most people had no idea who you were, but are interested in the movement and the manifesto and itself? I'm curious.
So still nobody knows who I am, and it's just a little group, right?
Hmm.
I'm just talking about something we're looking for.
Hmm.
If you are a weirdo and misfit, if you don't fit in the box, and you have that feeling of the world should know what I'm capable of, but
Hmm.
you don't want to see it. And then all of a sudden, there's this weird dude in the Netherlands with his Dutch accent calling himself the Octopus Movement, Dr. Octopus.
Hmm.
And then we connect, and then all of a sudden, all these people there understand what you're thinking. They get you. And that's for the first time in your life. So that's why it grew so fast, because they were saying to other people, misfits, weirdos, whatever, check this out. I found my tribe. I found my
Hmm.
people that, it feels so good. It feels so good to be with others who totally get you, right? Nice octopus.
I know. And my mom's like, "Whoa, what are you going live about? What is Octopus about?" Like immediately caught her attention. I like where you're going with this. Uh, I mean, not that I want to turn this into like a research project, but do we know approximately of the general population what is the percentage of people who are multipotentialites or kind of, you know, I
Oh
guess
dear.
everybody is non-linear. Sorry.
Yeah, everybody is. So this is a very difficult question. And by the
Mhm.
way, Todd Churches is sending messages. Todd Churches in New York, he is fucking amazing. Sorry for using the word.
We are
He
connected.
is
It's a small world. My
he
God.
is very nonlinear. I interviewed him. He is amazing. He has supporting me since the beginning of the Octopus movement.
No
And
way. Jeez.
this is the thing, Faye. If you start something, when you succeed and when you have a lot of followers on YouTube,
Mm,
or you get published in
mm,
Forbes or whatever, or you do your TED Talk and millions of people are watching you, then
mm,
everybody celebrates with you. Everybody's happy for you. But when you start something small and you take the first steps, that's exactly the time you need support. Then you need
mm,
people like Todd who are supporting you, who believe in you, who understand what you're saying,
mm,
and
mm.
and are always there. So for me, Todd Churches and many others is so important. Um,
This is important, Perry. I think you brought up a really good point, and literally one of the most a very popular, very famous songwriter. His name, I am not. It's so funny. Most people don't know who he is, but he wrote a bunch of songs for Adele. He even sings some of them with this beautiful tone. But he said, of all people, when he started as a songwriter, like 5 or 6 friends believed in him. That's it.
yeah.
But that small group of people is why he's here today. That
Mhm.
literally whatever he wrote, they're not even songwriters themselves, and they just, appreciated his music and always kind of gave him feedback. And I think this part is so important because, there's so many projects over the years, especially since I became an entrepreneur, just by being there for them, for my friends, for my clients, for people I believed in. Years later, they're thriving, they're doing something that's just unimaginable. So I mean, for me, that is like at a very micro level because I won't be able to be everywhere all at once. But I just love how you describe your relationship with Todd. And now you become that person, that connector, that glue to 1,800 people in the building, in the making. And there's going to be, who knows, thousands, tens of thousands of people be influenced by that. It's really cool.
We want to go to 1 billion, by the way. I want to link 1
That's
billion
it?
nonlinear thinkers together. Yeah, that's it. Just happen. No. But because then we can really make a difference. Then we can really change something. Faye rocks. Yeah, yeah. Faye rocks definitely taught.
Yeah. So
So
funny how
what's
we're
the
connected.
percentage? What's the
Mhm,
percentage? Everybody is a nonlinear thinker,
mhm,
right? And then when you go to school, you're being pushed and pressed and motivated to become a linear thinker. I
mhm,
teach at schools. I teach kids about nonlinear thinking. And then imagine this, a group of kids, they're all 9-year-old. And then I say to them, okay, what do you want to be when you grow up? And then these little arms go up. I want to be a dentist or a dancer or an artist. And they always say or a dancer or an artist or a veterinarian or whatever. And then I say to them, they're 9, flipping 9. I said, it's not true. You can be and a vet and a dancer and an artist. You can do all three at the same time. And then these 9-year-olds are saying to me,
Mhm.
no,
Mhm.
Perry, that's not possible. They're
Mhm.
flipping 9, Faye. I thought if you're 9, you're still, you know, innocent and, and,
Mhm.
and yourself. But
Yeah.
apparently, as soon as you go to school, you're being
Mhm.
pushed in a very linear way. I'm not saying linear is bad. I'm just saying let's create a little bit of a balance. And
Mhm.
people with brains that are wired differently, they cannot stay in that linear structure. They can't.
Mm.
So I think everybody is a nonlinear thinker. Only 80%, 70% of the people are in that linear structure and they're fine with it. And you have 20, 30% of the population that is trying to be as linear as possible, but
Mhm.
they simply can't stay there. And
Mm.
and and that's what I'm aiming for. That's the group of people that I find very interesting. The problem
Mhm.
is that the very linear thinkers who took the motivation to stay there because it helps them also to be successful and
Mhm.
have enough money, they don't understand why
Mhm.
there are nonlinear thinkers who cannot do that.
Mm.
Those are the kind of people who mean very well and say to you, you need to focus, you need to stick to one thing. It
Mhm.
helped me, look at me, I'm very
Mm.
successful.
Mm.
They don't understand that it's not possible. I also give speeches about neurodiversity. Recently, I was talking. I gave a speech at the Dutch bank about neurodiversity, and they told me that they hire people with autism.
Mhm.
Awesome, right? People with autism can be so beautiful in their way of looking at things,
Mhm.
and they can be so specialized, and they're awesome. So the company is saying, we adjust ourselves also for people with autism because it's horrible. I think it's around 80% of people with autism don't have a job or working way below their level. It's an issue.
Mhm.
So now this company is hiring people with autism, but the problem is not the company, it's the other people working there, the very linear people who are, very comfortable in that bath, in that water of unwritten rules. They understand all the unwritten rules. And then there's someone with autism who's different, who's outside of these boxes, and who
Mhm.
doesn't know all these unwritten rules, and they judge them for that. They say, I can't work with people like that. They're not doing this and this and all unwritten rules. That's difficult. So we
Ha-
need to talk about that.
Yeah, so I'm curious, like of the thinking about your movement and people who are in the movement, how many of them are entrepreneurs versus working full time, right? Holding a corporate job somewhere. And I think here's my, I guess, limited experience with that is when I was working in corporate, which I did for 10 years, to me, it's a pretty substantial amount of time of my career. And I was definitely seen, not always understood as a nonlinear thinker. So I was someone lucky for me. It was really interesting when I was 22, 23, graduating from college. I knew that finding a job in banking or just development, just one segment of technology, like middle tier, whatever, that wasn't for me.
Hmm.
So what was available back in 2006? Not so sure, frankly. It just felt like it was very limiting at the time. So I chose consulting because I get to work on different projects. Even then, it was difficult to go from being a software developer to a project manager. People are like, "What are you doing? You did such a setback." So title wise, there was a very clear setback and it made people very uncomfortable because
Yeah.
very, very, but since I started doing it, there are more people switching. I don't want to be a developer. I want to be a business analyst. I want people to start switching around. In retrospect, it was a sacrifice, very worth making. Now,
Hmm.
as an entrepreneur, right, I feel like it's a buffet. Now I really can do whatever I want to do. So my question for you, Perry, is like, what do you have any advice? Perhaps for people working in corporate culture right now. My boss told me this is what you do. Don't ever look outside. Focus. Do you think do you think those people should leave their jobs, consider having a conversation with their boss? How could they navigate this being in a very confined environment?
Well, first things first. First, you need to really
Mhm.
understand linear and nonlinear thinking. So you need to understand your own brain. Why are you a nonlinear thinker? What happens in your thinking, in your learning, in your working? Very important. And if that means you need to understand your neurodiversity, or you need to dive into ADHD because you have that label, you want everything about that, very important. But then also think about your boss who's very linear. And if you understand the concept of linear, nonlinear, you understand what your boss is expecting from you. And then you can go to your boss and say, listen, I'm a nonlinear thinker. You want this linear structure. I can follow you for 60%. But
Mhm.
I have 40% who is outside of that linear structure. How are we going to deal with that? How are we going to solve that? Personally, I think the leader of tomorrow is the nonlinear leader,
Mhm.
because leadership where you're able to move in all directions and see all different angles,
Mhm.
that would be so cool to have a boss like that rather
Mhm.
than very linear and very uptight. This is how it should
Mhm.
work. Um, so don't leave your job. Have a conversation about that. Or if you want to keep working for a company, go to a startup. Startups love nonlinear thinkers.
Mhm.
In a startup, everything is happening at the same time. You need to be very flexible. So if you are, corporate clients account manager at a huge international bank, that's a complete other story than you're the head of new sales at a startup.
Mhm.
With the startups, they want people that are very flexible, go in all directions. And that's a very cool place to be as a nonlinear thinker. And of
Mm.
course, in the movement, oh dear, there are a lot of entrepreneurs. A lot of
Mhm.
entrepreneurs, because at some point it doesn't fit anymore and they just want to do it themselves. And let me do it myself, please. And I've worked for corporate as well. And I was all over the place. I drove people nuts. It was in Beijing, in China. And yeah, at the same time, I was creating a TV show and I was working for corporate and I was doing this and that. Yeah, and people were like, "Who is this dude? This is
Mhm.
this is weird. He's not behaving as he should behave according to the unwritten rules." So, what is my advice? First advice: figure out how your brain works. Have a conversation with your boss about linear and nonlinear thinking. It
Mhm.
solves a lot
Mhm.
of issues. Definitely. It's not
Mm.
personal. That's also a thing.
Mhm.
If you're a bit weird, you always think it's personal. So people don't understand you and they can
Mhm.
be very judgmental to you. And what
Mhm.
do? You always think it's personal. It's not personal. They just don't understand your way of thinking. It's not about
Mhm.
you. It's how you behave, how you make decisions, how do you act. That's the issue.
Mm, absolutely. And for those of you who are watching, and it's really interesting, I saw like up to like 9, 10 people hopping on with us here. And we're not even seeing most of the numbers from LinkedIn. So if you're here, please say hi. Let us know where you are. Let us know what you're struggling with. And I really appreciate you being here, like morning time, Eastern Standard Time, anyways. So I love where we're going because when Perry, you and I first connected, we didn't really get to this level of details. But now in retrospect, there's just a lot that we can do. So I love when you say, let's observe our energy, observe the way we think. And so these days, if you're watching this, I actually take notes. So there's an app called Insight Timer, and it's completely free. I've been using it since 2016, 2015, maybe. And it was really interesting. Every time I turn on the app on a daily basis, it says, how are you feeling today? Check in with yourself. Now, I think that's a great way of tracking your mood, but also I think we need to do that even more often. So for instance, like I noticed recently that I was doing something not related to client projects, but it's just something that I was planning for as I'm relaunching my website. and I was, looking into different plugins and trying to learn something new, I just sensed somehow there's a sense of adrenaline there. I just felt happy in a second. It wasn't something dramatic, watching a Disney animation, go on a roller coaster. No, it's just like a very subtle thing in my heart that went up. And I was like, oh, that's interesting to note. I will actually write down what I was doing in that moment. And I also notice, for instance, sometimes I get a little moody when there's too much free time on my hand because I'm so used to running around being busy like Perry is. And sometimes that actually, well, that energy will be like, oh, there's kind of, it's trending down. But then I always tell myself, don't freak out. When there is free time, which is something that I've always been craving for, when I do some yoga stretches, why don't I just meditate for a couple of minutes and things will go back to normal? So, Perry, I'm curious, how do you check in with yourself to actually learn that process? Do you write things down? I mean, we're open. I absolutely believe in therapy. Like, what are some of the methods that you find helpful to understand yourself?
Meditation.
Yeah.
So my brain is very busy,
Mhm.
really busy. And when you're setting up a global movement yourself, I do everything myself because I believe when you set up something like that, I want to do everything myself. So in the near
Mhm.
future, when people will join me in the team, I've done it myself. I know what's happening. I know what it takes. I want to do everything myself. Also because in this very important stage where I am right now, I don't want to be depending on others. If I have an idea to change the website, I just want to do it, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, how do I organize and how do I organize myself?
Mhm.
It's meditation. Sometimes my thinking can go nuts. It goes in overdrive, especially
Mhm.
in the morning when I'm under the
Mhm.
shower. Ideas are, it's like someone is with a AK-47 shooting at me with ideas,
Yeah.
right? My kids are laughing. Sometimes I'm running around through the house completely wet, naked, to write down an idea because that happened under the shower. They're
Yeah.
cracking up. Oh, dad had an idea under the shower. But it needs to be still as well.
Mhm.
You need to be in control about yourself, what is happening. I've learned myself when thoughts are coming way too fast that I can say, okay, flip the switch and silent, please. Even in this
Mhm.
conversation, I can flip the switch and no thoughts whatsoever.
Yeah. Mhm.
And that helps because when you're creating content and you're doing your website
Mhm.
and you have your movement and you have your ambassadors all over the world and you have your time zones, and I have here 4 clocks with different time zones, and
Mhm.
you're doing Zoom sessions and you're doing live and you're doing interviews and you're
Mhm.
editing yourself. Too much is happening in your
Mhm.
brain. So meditation, that's
Mhm.
everything for me. Having a dog is a great solution as well. So every afternoon I need to go for a walk for at least 45 minutes. So I'm
Mhm.
in nature every day for 45 minutes during the afternoon to walk my dog because it
Mhm.
really helps me to stay here, to stay focused, to be
Mhm.
present, meditation, nature. And I write down, and I also
Mhm.
write down my thoughts. That helps. So
Mhm.
I have these cards that I use,
Oh, that's
and every
crazy. Cool.
time I have a crazy thought, a very nonlinear thought, I write it down on the card, or I draw on it, or whatever.
Is it laminated too on top of that?
Yeah,
This
these
is
are
good.
like, if you want to buy, if you want to print your photos yourself, you buy this kind of paper. And I love this because it's nice and smooth, and
Uh-huh.
it looks good when you write on it.
Yeah.
So one day I thought I want to write a book about nonlinear thinking, and I thought, where do I start? Well, I start here. Look at this pile of ideas.
Is
These
that
are all,
Aquanotes waterproof? No.
sorry?
So Todd just said he uses Aquanotes waterproof notepads. Is that what it is? It's what
No, I
uh
I don't know. Aqua knows what. Well, he uses that under the shower probably.
This is fun.
This is, you can also use a pencil,
Mhm.
a soft pencil, and just write on your wall under the shower to
Mhm.
take notes. And
Mhm.
then it's very easy with cleaning stuff to get it away after a little while. So I
Mhm.
always have a pencil under the shower to write down my thoughts. And then after a little while, I clean the wall and then I continue. So write down, like Todd is doing as well. I know Todd is also writing down all his thoughts in
Mm.
little books. I do that. I write under the shower books, and I have my cards that I write every time I have an idea or a strange sentence. There's a
Yeah.
strange sentence coming up in my brain,
Mm.
and I'm thinking, what the hell is this? Write it down, put it away.
Sometimes I know it's not perfect. When I travel, I like everybody else. I just use the notes app on my
Me
phone,
too. Yeah.
and it's just so funny because you're right. And there's so many things after you say it once, you don't remember. You can't replicate it. That's another thing, right? Like that's why when I did yesterday, I thought of like platform agnostic creators. I had to write it down. I said to my friend who's a editor at Forbes, I'm like, oh, we should really talk about that because it will escape. This is why my mom sometimes thinks I'm crazy. Like again, I don't think it's a good idea to leave your phone by on your nightstand. I get it. I have mine on the floor so I can't reach it. I'm 5'4". I don't have an arm the size of somebody who's 6'5". I can't easily reach something on the floor. And so I just keep it out of sight at least. But I love the idea of keeping a notepad because sometimes when you wake up in the morning, for me is when I go to sleep at night, I have all these ideas. And I'm like, I want to do this. And when you meditate, the first thing you hear is like, let go everything. You don't have to do any of that right now. Letting go. How do you balance? Or what type of meditation do you typically do, Perry? Do you have an app you use? Do you have a very basic, simple
No,
one?
very simple one. I go to my gut. I feel my
Hmm.
gut. So if soon as I want to switch off my thinking, I go
Hmm.
to my gut. I feel it here, and I feel it, and
Hmm.
by feeling my gut, it switches off my thinking.
Hmm.
Really convenient. And I'm a very good sleeper as well. So I can be in bed on my phone, checking out social media, doing things, also saving things on social media. I'm thinking, oh, that's interesting. I can use
Hmm.
that or whatever. And then I put my phone away and I fall asleep within 10 seconds. Really
Hmm.
worked well. And I wake up and I open my phone. Yeah, people are saying you shouldn't be doing that.
Yeah.
Flip it. I'm doing that. And I'm on my phone checking the social media, what happened during the night, and notes as well.
Yeah.
Walking the dog, it's
Yeah.
really funny. And then, oh, that's a funny word. And I write it down in notes, or I have an idea, or I have to call someone. Need to
Hmm.
write it down. Meditate. Switch off the thinking and write down
Yeah.
your thoughts. So yeah.
Speaking of multi everything, I have to kind of probe a bit because this is an opportunity where we can talk about more about you and people like yourself. So a lot of people don't know this, but people living in Europe in general. But what I find, like I have friends who are Dutch, German, uh, French, and I'm trying to think they all speak multiple languages. So for me, people are like, "Oh, Faye, your English is so good. English is a second language." I'm like, a lot of my friends speak English as a fifth language. So I want to just assess, Perry, how many languages do you speak on a regular basis versus, what do they call like fluency in business or conversational?
Only two. I'm not that great. It's English and Dutch, of course, and I
Hmm.
prefer English. So every day I'm on Zoom and I'm doing all kinds of things,
Hmm.
mostly outside of the Netherlands. So when I have to give my speech in Dutch, I really have to think. Oh shit,
Oh,
how does it work? So for me, on one it's English, then Dutch. I've lived in China, so I speak Idian Chinese,
yeah.
Mama Gugu, but I really enjoyed learning Chinese.
Mhm.
Um, I can understand French. I'm not very good in French because when I moved from China to Belgium, I came
Mhm.
to Brussels and I thought, oh, I just learned Chinese. I'm going to learn French now. How cool is this? It didn't work in my brain because when I was in China learning Chinese, and it's so difficult.
Mm.
I was doing a TV show with a taxi. So the word taxi in Chinese, chu chu chu,
Mm.
was so difficult for me to pronounce that it took me a week to just pronounce the word chu chu chu. And probably I'm not saying it correctly anymore because
No, why do
it,
they have to teach you that version of it instead of something different? I don't know. Uh, Dishu, right? It's
yeah,
like,
D sure also, but I
yeah,
like the word chu chu chu
出租车. Mm-hmm.
Chu chu chu, the CG. I thought it was so cool to pronounce that, right?
Yeah.
But it took me so
Yeah.
long. I even woke up during the night, and then
Mm.
I found myself practicing on the word chu chu chu.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went to Belgium, and I thought, okay, let's learn French now. That didn't work in
Mm.
my brain. That didn't work in my brain at all, because then I was thinking about a word, taxi, in French, but I was so focused in China to learn Chinese that the
Mm.
first thing that popped up in my mind was the word in Chinese, not in French. So I went from Dutch to Chinese and then learned French. And I thought, forget it, flip it. I'm not doing it. So
Mm.
I can pronounce French. I'm not very good in French. I understand, but I'm speaking French not very good. And as a Dutch person, we have German at school, so German I can navigate in that, and that's it. I just prefer English
Mm.
and still Chinese. And one day when I grow up, I want to learn Italian, because I think Italian is so beautiful and so
So
sexy.
beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah,
And you know what's always confusing is when you watch TV versus how people talk in real life, is that whenever I hear Italian, or sometimes, I live in the US, I hear some small percentage of my Italian friends can actually speak Italian here because they grew up with grandparents or their parents like a reinforced, and they not a lot. And also on movies, in movies, and everybody sounds so angry, shouting at something. But in real life, when I hear Italian people speaking, it's so gentle, beautiful, like I have a singing tone to it. So definitely it's on my list as well. I think a lot of people don't realize what it's like to be a multilingual, like a multicultural person, and have that mind to it, like how you are able to switch so quickly. Like, before I became my mom's caregiver and having her live with me in the same house, right? I would just pick up the phone, call her once a day, a few times a week, but I'm already ready to go. Nowadays, I'm in the middle of live streaming with you. My mom has a request. Boom. It's like half a second. I switch over there.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I think it's a beautiful thing. I think our brains as a result are wired differently, possibly even exacerbate this whole multipotentialite nonlinear effect. What do you think?
It's a superpower.
Yeah.
That's what we're saying. And then some people can think, oh God, listen to them. But it's really true. If you can switch so easily from one project to another,
Mhm.
if it's so easy for us to find solutions for problems. I recently made a post on LinkedIn. The problem isn't a problem. Lack of having solutions, that's a problem. Problem
Mhm.
itself is not a problem. And we have a superpower to always find new solutions
Mhm.
for whatever we encounter in life. And I
Mhm.
think that's a superpower, but also to adjust yourself. And then you're talking to a CEO of a big company, and then you're talking to someone who is an artist, or
Mhm. Mm.
it's a superpower.
That's
It's just
interesting.
wonderful to use that. Tonight
Mhm.
I have my founding members meeting, so people in the octopus movement can become a founding member,
Mhm.
and from all over the world. And you switch between cultures, language, how things work. We're all on Zoom. We're all on Zoom at the same time, but there are people from India there, from
Mhm.
South Africa, from the US, from Europe, and the conversations always are adjusted to the people we're talking to.
Mm.
And that's adjusting yourself and being very flexible and nonlinear. That's a flipping superpower.
Yeah, I love it. And for those of you who want to practice and embrace your superpower, I would say podcasting is a fantastic way to do it. If you're
Yeah.
nervous, just pre-record it on Zoom where you don't even have to. But I think live streaming will take that excitement to a whole other level because you observe yourself reacting to such different people. So, for instance, Perry, you're being here. We met a week ago. Really, I think our connection, through Chris Michelle, and now very quickly, Todd Church is someone I also interviewed not so long ago. I mean, within the past year or so, I've known a lot of respect for many years, had a lot of fun, and here we are. Our first languages was not English, and we lived continents apart, and it just all these different things coming together. Yet there's so many similarities, and there's something really comforting about that. Almost make me just thinking about your movement made me realize that over the years, I think about the neighborhood I grew up in, downtown Beijing, not so far away from Tiananmen Square, for instance. A lot of people that I connected with, but a lot of people I did not, who didn't get me at all. Yet, fast forward 10, 20 years later, I'm here. People who look
Mhm.
nothing like me, didn't have really a lot of shared experiences, yet they're so close to me. They get who I am as a person. We can see eye to eye. And it's just like, how did this happen? And Seth Godin's L10BA is a great community that brought me so close to people, perhaps just like the octopus movement. But I think it's so important for someone to step up to say, let's come together. Let's find new friends.
And
Because
you're
all of us,
describing now the
yeah,
mycelium that I'm talking about. That mycelium that I call our network in the octopus movement.
yeah,
When you're on Zoom with someone, sometimes there is a connection that you cannot understand. It feels good. Your gut feeling is saying,
yeah,
wow. And something else is happening than just a conversation. And I think
mm,
there is a biological connection between two brains, even though we're now looking at a screen and I wear a headset and you have a microphone in
mm,
front of you, and we're traveling in ones and zeros on dark fiber optic cable through the ocean. Still, I feel connected with you. And
yeah,
that connection is just mind blowing. And when that is in the same level, however you want to call it, I don't want to go
mm,
to hocus pocus, whatever, but that connection is there. And
mm,
that's awesome. And it doesn't matter what language you speak or
mm,
where you're from or what kind of gender, skin color, religion, upbringing, doesn't matter. There's a connection. And I think that's real diversity. That's also one of
mm,
the reasons why I started the Octopus Movement. There's so much going on in the world. And then I have this experience with people all over the world. And I'm thinking, why is there racism? That's weird. If I talk
mm.
to all these people all over the world, it's so beautiful. That's why can I show you something quickly? I'm
Oh yeah,
creating
please.
a global art project. It's a book like this, a huge art
Oh,
book. And I'm, let me show you an example. Oh, where are you? Here you go, Yoko Ono. A huge fan of Yoko Ono. So here's a picture and a story of Yoko Ono. And I'm creating a book like this with 398 nonlinear thinkers in it. And I'm asking all these nonlinear thinkers to write a nonlinear story, 450 words maximum. Just write whatever you want to write about. Give me a photo, and it will
mhm,
all come in this art book. And it's people from all over the world. The youngest is 6, the oldest is 82. Korea,
mhm,
Japan, New Zealand, Australia, South Africa, Bangladesh, everywhere.
mhm,
That's for me the real diversity, and I think that's what we need to focus on. And it's just beautiful, and if there's no more racism, if we can really go into humanity and take care of each other and take care of the planet we live on, right,
mhm, mhm.
then
Yeah, for
something
sure.
beautiful will happen. And it's exactly what you're describing right now, Faye, that it's you're
Mm,
connecting with someone on Zoom, on a live stream, you feel something, embrace that, connect with that person,
mhm,
and enjoy this. It's beautiful, and it's a
mm.
new way of looking at the global world, I think.
Yeah, this is the final message is critical. Diversity and sustainability. I couldn't agree more. I think there is so much violence still in the world is because we believe we're still playing this zero sum game. If I have this, so you can't have it. You have that. Oh, it won't be available to me. But what if we all share something, and to be inside a different culture, and you might have some negative experiences, but don't just stop there. You might interact with someone, have a bad experience, but that doesn't represent the entire culture.
No.
So you got to keep pushing forward. I think it's the same thing as learning a new language, trying something new. It doesn't always work out the first time around. So I absolutely encourage people to have fun. We are a lot we're going to be a lot less alone in that way. We are not alone. I think it just sometimes we purposely isolate ourselves. You see that happening with corporations. So we're analysts, you're designers, so you're project managers. We can't possibly be friends, right? I think that is just absolutely the wrong way of thinking.
It's so linear.
Yeah.
It's so linear. You need to have an education from university, otherwise I cannot be friends with you. You're
Yeah.
undereducated, right?
Yeah.
Or you need to be from this kind of religion,
Yeah.
otherwise I have an issue with that. Or you need to be whatever. I
Mhm.
find that very linear, and that's not always helping.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to respect your time, Perry, but I have before I let you go, because you and I can probably go on. I have a talk show like this week, or we can just keep talking for 24 hours. Is that you lived in China for how many years? Remind me again.
Three and a half years in Beijing. Yes.
Wow. Where else for how many more years? Oh, just
Only, uh,
just
only,
Beijing.
only in China and then in Belgium, in Brussels, for more than 9 years, and now I'm back in the Netherlands.
Wow. So it's
And
three and a half
China
years
was
in
just
Beijing.
awesome. And being in Beijing at that
Oh,
time was, I still know the street that I lived at. It's
yeah.
like Guangying Donglu. So every time I
Yeah.
was in the taxi, like Guangying Donglu, and then the taxi driver was like, "不知道," and I was like,
Yeah.
我知
What are you
道,
talking about?
and I will say 有拐,走拐, or 有头, or whatever. It was absolutely amazing to be in China with your amazing culture, with the food, the people. I had
Mhm.
so much fun. It was so pleasant, and I made beautiful friendships in China.
Mm.
It's amazing people. I have really good memories of living in Beijing.
Oh.
So if you don't know what you want to do in life, move to Beijing, and I will assure you it's so awesome.
Oh, I will not. I mean, I kid you not. I met this woman for the first time via Zoom. She's from Finland, blonde, blue eyed. Her daughters like even like came over while we're on the Zoom. Like gave her a glass of water. I was so touched by it, and she left. And she's like, "Faye, I was flying to China, Beijing for the first time when I was 33, and when the plane descended, I thought to myself, wow, I'm finally home. I was on Zoom. I'm like, what? you know,
Blonde, blue eyes, what's happening with you, woman?
oh, it was I'm finally home. Like, she was so sincere, and I was
Yeah.
so touched by that, you know? I was like, "Am I supposed to feel like that? What does she feel that way?" And I feel the same way when I come to Boston, and Boston doesn't remind people of the, like, warmest as in culturally, the warmest place, yet it just feels like Beijing feels like home, Boston feels like home to me, and I love the cultures in both places. But I have to ask you too, Perry,
Mhm.
couple of follow-up questions. You okay? You have to run
I
in
know,
in
no,
a
I love this.
second.
So let's continue.
You're like, "Forget about the movement." Just kidding. The
Yeah,
movement is
no.
still going on. Um, what is the level of, discomfort as you were sitting in a taxi, traveling to different places? Do you remember yourself going from, "Oh my god, what am I doing? Am I gonna am I in danger?" Or to, "I'm actually comfortable not knowing the language, not knowing where I'm going. I probably don't have a ton of friends." Like, did you ever sense that transition? You're like, or from the first day, you're like, yeah, I'm here. Let me
I
have
I
fun.
I love new challenges. So
Yeah.
I remember so well. We moved to Beijing. We had two kids back then,
Mhm.
and the youngest was still a little baby. And we
Oh, geez.
had this temporary apartment in Beijing. So
Mhm.
you come in China, then you also discover that in the Netherlands at school they never teach you anything about China. I had no idea really about the culture, about anything, no
Yeah.
idea. So we touched ground in Beijing, went to the apartment, and I had to buy a little bed for the baby.
Oh, yeah.
So I thought I'm going to IKEA to buy a bed. This was the first day in Beijing. We
Yeah.
touched ground. 2 hours later, I was at the IKEA in Beijing.
Jesus.
So the reception gave me a little card for directions for the taxi drivers. He wants to go to Ija, and Perry went to
Mhm.
IKEA. So I
Mhm.
came into IKEA. I was over the moon. Everything
Mhm.
is the same, but prices were
In R&B, yeah?
in RMB and in Chinese characters, and there are Chinese people everywhere. Wow!
Yeah.
And so I went to get the bed. I came outside. It was already 9 in the evening, and I had this huge box with the bed in it. And I went to the taxi, and the taxi driver was like, "No, no, 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 we're not doing this." I didn't speak a word of Chinese, Faye. It was within 12 hours that I landed in China. So I was standing there with my box. Taxi driver was saying no. I
Mhm.
didn't have a cell phone yet, just came in China. So I was like, oh, damn, that's
Figure it
interesting. And
out.
then a few people came to me and they were saying, oh, I can bring you. I didn't understand what they were saying, but I could understand that this was it.
Mhm.
Then we had to negotiate about the price. I
Oh,
remember
geez.
paying 100 RMB to bring me back to my apartment, which is
Yeah.
way too expensive, but okay, never mind. And then this car came in front of me and he had these black lights underneath,
Oh,
and
geez.
and the stereo installation, and the whole car went like,
Now I'm scared.
and I was like, oh God, what am I getting into? So I put the box in the car, went in the front seat, and I gave him the card of the apartment building. I said, well,
Yeah.
here you go. And he was playing loud Chinese rap music, and he was laughing, and he was driving completely in the wrong direction. I was like, oh no. But I know the apartment is close to the airport, and we're going more into
Oh,
downtown.
no.
So I was sitting next to him, imitating an airplane. We need to go to the airport. And I was like, I don't understand that. I said, well, airplane. So he turned the car around, went direction airport, and I remembered which exit we took from the airport, thank God. And we came to the apartment building almost at midnight.
Mm.
And the guy came up in the apartment building, helped me to mount the bed for the baby.
Oh my
Really,
god. I thought he's gonna overcharge you and, like, do
no, no,
something.
no. He
Oh,
came up,
yeah.
and he was helping me with the bed because he
Oh,
felt very sorry for me that he drove
oh,
the wrong direction, and and that was my first experience in China.
what a
So
sweet
do I
story.
get do I get scared when everything is new?
Yeah.
I get very excited. I love that when
This and
everything is
no, see, like, years later, I don't know whether that's, like, 10 years ago or something, you still remember that story. You're always
yeah.
gonna remember that story. And same thing, a female friend of mine, I traveled to London, and, oh my god, if you ever travel in the tube, we had these full-size luggage, and there was no elevator. So, I remember just, like, thinking, "Oh my god, we packed, like, 3 weeks worth of stuff." And this, like, this woman who was like petite sized English woman turned around. She was clearly going to work with purse and everything. She turned around. She's like, "I'm gonna help you," and it was just crazy. Like people, those are the stories I always remember.
Yeah.
Being lost, same again. It just interesting. I told my mom we're driving in London. All the streets were really narrow. We were just packing. You could see their cars backed up. 5, 6 cars behind us, and not a single person honked, not once, and they know that we're like busy trying to get going. And uh it's fascinating. Okay, I'm going to ask you about the favorite food or foods that you've tried in China. I'm not as adventurous with all kinds of food.
I've
uh,
tried everything.
you
Faye, I
tried
was
everything.
there. Oh yeah, and I was working for an animal nutrition company. So I was traveling through China and went to rural areas in China to
Mm.
visit farmers and whatnot. It was hilarious because then the European dude is visiting whatever little town in China. So everybody would come out and look at me like, what is this guy? He has blonde
Yeah.
hair and blue eyes. Yeah, it was hilarious. I've tried everything. Um, Bye, Todd. Um, I've tried everything, and I have to admit,
Mhm.
most of the things were just delicious. Even jellyfish. If I tell that people right here now that I would eat a salad with jellyfish, they look at me like, yeah,
Mm.
are
It's
you
so
kidding
weird and
me?
gross. Yeah.
It's horrible. You have no idea how tasty jellyfish is in China. It's really nice.
Yeah, that's true. It's like how things are made, right? What are your go-to like homey food in China? Do you like the kung pao chicken? Like what are I mean, Beijing is also very different than living in Canton. I'm half Cantonese, for instance, so I've had my separate favorite dishes in Canton versus Beijing. But what are some of your favorite like go-to dishes in Beijing?
Well, the southern part, the very spicy dishes are way
Hmm.
my favorite. They're just awesome. And we were living the expat life, so
Hmm.
we were having a very good life in Beijing. So we had an ai cooking for us, and it was
Oh,
just amazing. One time we had an ai. I think she was more a chef than someone to help in the household.
wow.
And I was in the beginning, I was working at home, and she would make lunch for me, and then the whole table, was full of food, and I was going nuts, and I wanted to learn everything, I wanted to taste everything,
Hmm.
like the what is it, 1,000-year-old egg?
Egg. Yeah, yeah.
It
It's not a
smells.
thousand years old for people who
No,
are
no,
watching.
no. But I think that's the name or so, or 100
Yeah,
years old, or whatever. And I came in the
so
kitchen. I was
good.
like, "What the hell is happening here? That
Yeah.
smell is just horrible." But then you taste it in a dish,
Yeah,
and it's so delicious. Like
yeah.
stinky tofu is. It smells horrible when you taste it. It's just wonderful. So kung pao
This is so
chicken,
funny.
kung pao chicken. That's for tourists. I wasn't eating that. I was eating all kinds of things, and still I cook Chinese myself. I bought some really nice cooking books in China, and
Mm-hmm.
and I have my Chinese cooking gear in my kitchen. And eggplant is one of my
Oh,
favorite.
eggplant, so good.
Eggplant Chinese way is, and then very la is the best for me.
Very loud, very, very
Very la,
spicy. Is
very spicy.
I'm curious, like you mentioned you have 2 kids and now they spend
Three,
some formative 3 kids.
yeah.
Oh, yeah, and then I know that, 2 of them traveled with you to Beijing, am I correct? One, I suppose, born after your Beijing trip?
Yeah, so we
Uh-huh,
went to Beijing and we had two boys. And
mhm.
then just before we left, we had a girl, and her name in Dutch is Pieternel, but her official name is Pieternel Mei Mei Knoppert. We gave her a Chinese name, and
Oh.
and she's so proud to be made in China. we always tease her with that. The two boys
Made
always say, "Oh, you're made in China. We don't take you seriously," and and she's so proud to be Mei Mei. Um, yeah, and then the two boys, they don't have an official Chinese name, but they were Jian Jian and Yo Yo. So Jian Jian, Yo Yo, and Mei Mei were our kids in China. Just
Oh,
awesome.
kids in China. Oh, wow. Do they still eat Chinese food, because of that
Yeah,
experience?
yeah. So fried rice, Chinese style.
Yeah.
Dad, can we have fried rice or fried noodles? Definitely. Or um, the egg with the tomato. It's
The
very
best.
simple, very, very tasty. They love that. And my oldest son, who's now 16, he still knows a lot of Chinese words because they went
Mhm,
to an international Montessori school in Beijing. So
mhm,
half of the day was in English and half of the day was in Chinese. So they had a English classroom and a
mhm.
Chinese classroom. And how beautiful is this? My son went to school for the first day. He came into the classroom. He wasn't able to speak any English, any Chinese. He only spoke Dutch, of course.
Mm,
He met this little Chinese girl. She didn't speak any word of English, only
mhm,
Chinese. They bonded. They started talking in their own language. So she in Chinese, he in Dutch. They became best friends during this whole period in China. He's
Wha
still in contact with her on Instagram. And he learned Chinese so fast. I was so jealous of him. So half of the day in the classroom where everything is English, and then they went to another classroom where they had a Chinese teacher. Everything was in Chinese. They were
Mhm.
drinking Chinese tea. They doing everything in Chinese, and he had to, learn all these poems by head and all these songs, and just
Wow.
wonderful. And we still count in Chinese in our household. We still do that, and I still
He
say
does.
"kwaidier,"
Right. "Hi
收吧,
there.
快一点,
Hurry up."
收吧.
Everybody people learning so much through this live stream because it was so interesting. We're talking about non-linear and multicultural. I obviously we should speak for your kids, but I wonder, the years since they've gotten back, do you see them? They now primarily live in the Netherlands, I suppose, and so do you see some diversity among their friends group? Obviously, that requires people to live in a certain place. I'm not saying that, oh, it's a given, right? Like you, depending on where you are, you may or may not have the exposure. But do they seek out kids who are Asian or from different cultures, regardless whether they are Asian or not? What's their comfort level?
Their comfort level is international. So they go to an international school. and their comfort level is international contact. So they're in less they're less comfortable just with Dutch kids.
Ooh.
They
I,
don't get them, and they find them very strange as well.
mhm,
Um, so they prefer to hang out with international kids.
mhm,
Another thing is that all my kids are very nonlinear as well. They all have neurodiversity, and yesterday my son said to me, the four of us are just crazy. We don't fit in. We're different. We're totally different, and we have these nonlinear conversations in our household, of course, where there is the linear world. Like recently, my
mhm,
son came home, my middle son, Yo-Yo, of 14. He's now 14, and he wanted to go to the school picture wearing his tiny little sunglasses. He had weird sunglasses. He's a very dramatic, funny stand-up comedian kind of boy.
mhm.
And he wanted to wear his little sunglasses on the school picture. And of course, the photographer said, "No, we're not doing this." And so he came home and he said, "Dad, that photographer is not really an artist. He's so linear. I couldn't wear my sunglasses, but okay, I get it. For him,
Mhm.
that's the way to go." And so we talk about linear, nonlinear a lot in my household. I'm divorced. Um, it's all about international. My oldest son cannot wait to go abroad again.
Mm.
And my daughter, who was born in China, and we left after she was born after a few months, she can't wait to go back. I think she has the closest connection to China, even though she hasn't had because she doesn't have any recognition
Mhm.
of being in China.
Mhm.
But knowing to be born in China, to have been born in China, that makes her very close to China. So I can't wait someday to go back to Beijing, especially with Mei Mei, and to show her
Oh.
around. I can't wait for that.
Oh, that is so beautiful. And it's so encouraging for, I think, for other parents. I know, as you can imagine, though, a lot of parents, sometimes one of the parents just they have to they have to travel a lot for their work, and sometimes it's predictable, sometimes it's not, and that puts a lot of stress on kids growing up. And I'm find myself even in these conversations of parents who move within the United States or having to travel abroad. But I gotta tell you, sometimes I find out much later. I don't go to like a corporate environment. People will come up to me, be like, "Hey, I spent one day in Beijing, a month in Hong Kong." Sometimes people are hesitant to like
Mhm.
force that connection onto you, but I love it. I wish they would have told me a lot sooner, because I got to tell you, just my friends spending even teenage years in China and Hong Kong and going to international schools are just they just had the most beautiful memories, and they couldn't wait to share with me, and that made them really stand out and feel like they have this, there's something, not a weapon, there's something that they could share with their peers, something that they would absolutely carry for the rest of their lives. And it just,
Yeah,
now you're reminding me just how beautiful that is, how memorable. Like these women I know in their 30s, this happened in their 15, 16, they're still talking about it.
of course,
So
because their perception of the world is
mhm,
completely different. Look at the Netherlands. It's this tiny little place on the globe. You know,
mhm,
what is the Netherlands? We're everywhere and we make a lot of noise, but the country by itself doesn't mean anything. And
mhm,
and if you live there in a little village and you go there to school and you were born there and you go there to school and that's the only thing you see, then that's your world.
mhm,
And
mhm,
then you're a kid and you're traveling the world. You go into Beijing, you live in Belgium, you have an international group of friends, which means everything. And at international schools, they celebrate all
mhm,
kinds of different cultural celebrations, right?
mhm,
From
mhm,
all different cultures. So it opens up this huge perspective on how the world looks like. So my kids have friends from India, from the United States, from Australia. And thanks to social media and internet, they can still stay in touch. They follow each
mhm,
other on TikTok, on Instagram, and they're making already amazing connections. And they
mhm.
haven't even really get out there. They're just doing high school, and it's
Yeah.
already an amazing network that they're creating.
Wow.
Love
So
international schools.
Oh, I love it so much, and I should definitely let you go. But I want people who are listening now or watching this later to think about, oh, either how do I create that environment, that community for me, versus how can I do that for my kids? A lot of people watching the channel have young kids too, so I think for you. There is the movement started by Perry. Links in the description below. Definitely check it out. Communities such as Seth Godin's, Dory Clark's, and even communities, I would say a lot of the writers community where you kind of come together, learn to create together, create something together, uh and that's just beautiful. You always inevitably run into the international population, and don't ever judge someone whose first language or second language may not be English, because I really start to embrace accents. I love the way they write. Who is it to say that grammatically this is the only way to write about it? That's a very linear way of how I really hated my
You
own
get it.
writing.
Yeah.
Right at the beginning,
Yeah.
I was so hesitant. I can't blog. I'm a foreigner. I can't write. I can't communicate that I shouldn't have an authoritative a tone. But I was so wrong about that, because other people who speak English as a second, third, or whatever language, really find my language, my way of writing very comforting. Moreover, it's a reason for them to create, which is the ultimate goal. So, sorry, that's one thing for yourself. The other for your kids, if you don't have any international schools near you or don't have those resources available to you, Perry, what should we do? I mean, look around your neighborhood, most
Well,
neighborhoods.
well,
Yeah.
for your it's difficult with the international schools. Like here in Europe, many times you can only go to an international school if you've really been abroad or when you're a foreigner. So
Yeah.
sometimes that's very difficult. Try to find the people who eyes light up when you enter the room.
Yeah.
I think that's it. Find
Yeah.
the kind of people that resonates with you.
Hmm.
And whatever group of people that is, it doesn't matter. But
Hmm.
when they see you coming into a Zoom session and they started laughing and being happy that they see you again,
Mm.
connect with a group of people like that,
Hmm.
and share your experiences and your
Hmm.
knowledge also with your kids. You
Hmm.
know,
Hmm.
we're I give advice to parents as well how to deal with nonlinear kids.
Hmm.
People, wake up. Don't do everything in a linear way. It's not the solution. Sometimes it fits very well, but
Hmm.
also listen to your kids, right? And
Hmm.
they don't have to make up what you have messed up.
Hmm. Hmm.
They don't have to become what you always would like to have become.
Mm.
They're individuals, and
Mhm.
have conversations about this with them.
Yeah.
And
Mm.
as a 16-year-old or as a teenager, I can imagine it's so difficult
Mm.
to find your tribe. And I hope in the near future the octopus movement can make a change in that as well. We're organizing now a summer camp for next summer for teenagers, and we're
Octopus for
flying.
kids. Yeah.
Yeah, we're flying in professors from all over the world and go crazy with all kinds of topics. We're doing so many things. It's so important to find a group of people or a group of teenagers or whatever that are like-minded. Don't
Mm.
do it in a linear way. Don't go too narrow, right? Don't go from I'm an artist, so I will go to a group with only artists. Don't do that.
Mhm.
Open up your eyes, explore, and don't be so judgmental in your linear pattern of thinking. This is nothing for me. You don't know. Give it a try. I
Mhm.
don't know what happens when I landed first time in Beijing and go to IKEA late in the evening. I had no idea. And now 14 years later, I'm still talking about it. So
Yeah.
give it a try. Don't be so judgmental.
I love
That's
it. I love it. I'm so grateful for you to join me today, Perry, for us to have connected. I can see there are a lot of opportunities for us to collaborate on, to continue the conversation, to say the least. And I am so grateful for so many people who hopped on today, who may or may not leave us a comment, but you are allowed to do so after as well. We'll monitor the channel. I think like dozens and dozens of people have hopped on. I'm so grateful for that. So with that said, Perry, I will take us offline, and we'll have to chat again in the near future.
well. I will hunt you, Faye, because I
Good.
really enjoyed this. And
Mhm.
let's do something very nonlinear, very crazy, very unexpected, or something else, something weird, whatever. Let's figure out something what we could do together. That would be awesome. Thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Bye, live audience.